Hello. Right now, I want to explain what are things that increase your sense of self and things that decrease your sense of self or destroy it, in my understanding at least. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So, what's the. Let's go plus and minus. Okay, so in the category of things that destroy your sense of self, it's any form of worship. Any form where you suppress your ideas and just trust someone else or some external entity that was always going to suppress your sense of self. If you think about what religion is, it's uh it's a form of relinquishing control by trusting into some belief system. Um, it's a way of accepting and relinquishing uh yeah, it's relinquishing your ability. In a sense, people say about making deal with the devil, and there's some songs that are um, about this or whatever. Like this idea that you can sell your soul to attain extreme power, but you don't get to go to heaven. In a way, I mean, the roots of that idea are kind of ironic because religion, in its technically, is that you're selling your sense of self to subscribe to something greater than self, some entity like a god, some belief system. And uh, at least in my understanding, that is the equivalent of selling your soul to the devil. It's just you call him God or whatever. It's like you're basically selling out your potential to survive today. Um, what are other things like what else does it mean to worship something or someone? You could worship celebrities. You could worship a lifestyle. Like there's a lot of people that are uh really cringe in how they treat celebrities. They're like, oh my god, this celebrity, I would do anything to be like them. Meh, 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 meh." They're like putting them on a pedestal, and it's actually kind of disgusting. It's like a very self-depreciating way to see life. Um, Like, what kind of person do you have to sit there and be like, oh, do you know what X and X, blah 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 person said? Meh, meh, meh. Like, how insignificant and empty your self-perception needs to be to even talk like that. Like, you have to be so far gone. You have to, I don't know, you have to be such a insignificant person in your own eyes that even your own life has less significance than some random fucking celebrity. Why the fuck would you spend mental energy? Okay, it's okay sometimes to talk, if it somehow affects your life. Let's say, I don't know, you learn something from some celebrity and you wanna integrate it into your life. Yes. Except for a majority of people that are I'm referring to here are not like this. They're all just like trying to erase their personality and replace themselves with a projection of that celebrity, or they're trying to uh, or like they're obsessively talking about like TV shows or whatever. It's all the same shit. It's the people that consume things and use those things to override themselves instead of consuming them and digesting them and using it to grow themselves. And how do you see the difference between those people, uh, it's fairly simple. One speaks more like a fan, and the other speaks more like a connoisseur. Um, it changes where they place value. The fan places value in the art itself, and the connoisseur places the value on himself and his ability to interpret the art, and then after that, into the meaning of the art itself. Or how should I say, the original value comes from the value that they get from the art. For example, I watch Berserk. I get this incredible insight about life from watching Berserk. That is me digesting it and growing from it. If somebody else watches Berserk is like, it's such a masterpiece, Miura is my goat. Like you missed the point. You didn't um you're just a fangirl, right? So by worship I extend that meaning up to there. Um, I guess this also applies. Like Stoics are people that basically kind of do the same thing. Like, oh, Marcus Aurelius, he's the philosopher king. And if you look at those people, they're extremely well. Stoicism is gay. I don't know how to put it, but it's like they don't have their own opinions. Like, let's look at these titles. Hard to ask a woman for intimacy. Psychological trick. Stoicism. Hard to discover a woman's past without asking anything. Stoicism. Like, what the fuck is that? It's like someone has. I don't know how to put it. When I read that, the impression I get is like a little, small, little insecure person uh, who's trying to pose as this stoic, strong, unmovable person, which they're not. And if you read at these titles, do you think that that's inherently someone who doesn't care about the opinions of others and is immune to, is like truly free? How to ask a woman for intimacy, psychological trick. How to discover a woman's past without asking anything. Like, I don't know how to put it. This like tips and tricks type of uh, delivery is also a form of worship because you believe that someone or some ideology might have the answers to your problems and you're just incapable of applying critical thinking. Like, the appeal is finding someone who's smarter than you to tell you how to do something so that you can like cheat the system or life hack by, avoiding the pain points. And that just doesn't work. That's not self-growing. That is avoiding the challenge that could have had the potential to grow your sense of self. Uh, okay. Any form of worship. What grows you, or what would be the opposite of worship? Um, there is a correct form of worship, and I like to call it self-worship. Like um, you need to make yourself the center of your own world. In a sense that I don't know. What I mean by that, if you see yourself as something inherently beautiful, as something that's inherently, I don't know, growing, and you're attached to that, and you're almost worshiping uh, this process of growing and just, I don't know how else to word it, like being in the element, like being alive. I think that form of worship, or like worshiping your own intelligence, or your own skill, or your own energy, your own strength, I think those are acceptable. Those are forms of worship that will um, increase your sense of self. For some reason, what's coming into my mind is like the female equivalent of some like beauty routine or some shit. If you really think about that, that's a form of worshiping your own body, like dieting properly. Uh, like the line is like, "My body is a temple. Why would I fill it with trash?" It's like that's a form of worship, right? Making decisions based on um, respecting your own body. Uh, I think that would be the only type of worship that I don't consider to be diminishing sense of self because it's uh, directed towards self, not external, not at erasing self. What are other things that decrease your sense of self or increase your sense of self? I think I've already said this, but just exerting effort and uh, seeing result. Uh, Both are kind of separate, uh, but when they're linked together, they're very powerful. Um, but even this can be turned into a self-diminishing behavior. Let's say you are it's why I've started hating aesthetics so much recently. It's if you subscribe to aesthetics, what are you worshiping? You're not worshiping yourself, you're worshiping the aesthetic of something. For example, you might have been inspired by Greek mythology or some shit, and you might really like that, and that might be your aesthetic. And you're pushing yourself to towards that aesthetic. You're worshiping the aesthetic, and your path towards that aesthetic will feel it won't it will feel like self-diminishing because you it in a if you were to express in words what you're saying with those actions is I am not worthy. I don't have an aesthetic, and I will push myself to become of this aesthetic, which is worthy, which is self-diminishing. It's a self-oppressive idea. It's like I will eradicate the ugly parts out of myself. That is self-diminishing. That is uh, going to suppress your sense of self. Uh, that's why you have so many people that do uh, get insane results, but after a while they're just dead inside. It's because they've eroded their sense of self by uh, cutting out parts of themselves. They didn't arrive there by engaging with self. And if they arrived there with engagement of self, they probably could go way further because by the time they reach that point, they're not going to be fucking dead inside. They're going to still have energy left to live and excitement towards life. Um, and seeing result is kind of the same. If you subscribe to an aesthetic, that means generally aesthetics are something that is abstract and conceptual. It's not something that you can fulfill. You can't become God. You will always have something else to gain. You'll have another mountain to climb. If you subscribe to the idea of climbing mountains, you're always going to be inferior no matter what. You will always find a way to devalue yourself in face of the desired outcome. For example, you might win some championship, local championship in some sport. You'll be like, well, I'm still no one compared to the world champion. That is uh, kind of the way aesthetics backfire you. Yes, that aesthetic might have been the thing that pulled you towards winning the championship, but over time, as I said, that will erode you, and it's actually not ideal. Um, so those things, but with correct engagement, with ways that are, how should I say, what's the difference between aesthetic forced and non-aesthetic is one is you're looking at yourself and just appreciating what you've done, and the other is like you're looking ahead and trying to reach that, and you're blind to what is right in front of you. And if you're the further you look into the future, the further you look away from your current self, the more detached you become from self, which diminishes your sense of self. If you think too far in the past, if you're always um, either trauma maxing or something, that's also a form of detachment from self, or rejection of self. Okay, what else? So, exerting effort and seeing result and aesthetics. Aesthetics are something that destroys you, your sense of self. Like, you should be able to see aesthetic within yourself, then it's fine. But if you chase that aesthetic, then it will always lead you away from yourself. Uh, ex hmm, seeing this kind of, I feel like a lot of these will relate to the 2 points I've mentioned here, but I'm gonna go ahead anyway. So, seeing your own impact, like seeing what you have done and not looking at it through the realm of aesthetics, not looking through it like, oh, I've just done this, but what does that matter in the context of the world? What have I done for society? But thinking of it in context of yourself. I have just done this, and without marking it with aesthetics. That is something that is always going to increase your sense of self. It's like understanding what you're capable of, understanding what uh, you have achieved, understanding what you have done. It's like a mark. It's like a form of marking your territory, I guess you could say. Um, what else? So worshipping is gay, stoicism is gay. They're all kind of the same thing. Um, I really hate Buddhism, and Buddhism isn't a form of worship. It's often misattributed as a religion. It's not. Um, the problem with Buddhism is, I mean, it's kind of close to Stoicism. The core idea behind them is rejection of self. It's literally a rejection of self. It's like if you just make that voice inside your head shut up, then you will be at peace. You'll finally be free. And I'm sorry to burst your bubble, but this idea that someone can go and be a Shaolin monk and live their whole life in self-rejection and run on rocks and then come out and be stronger than ever is just bullshit. Like, like, has there been any fucking like real trend as a population that people that are from those regions or from those cultures go into any form of competitive or performance-oriented environment and they dominate? Like, there's a few outliers, but apart from that, uh, there isn't much of a trend for that. Uh, I mean, I guess the trend, it doesn't really matter. It wouldn't really prove anything either way. The problem with Buddhism is it's all about maximizing being content and balanced and happy, and um, that a lot of the time, like if that's what you want to feel, if that's what yourself is, yes, that can be in touch with yourself. But a lot of the time, that's not who you are. And trying to override or bend yourself into that direction, or shut yourself out, will just completely like kill you. Like, yes, it will make you feel happy or not happy. It will make you feel contempt or high serotonin. But that doesn't correlate with living a full life. That doesn't make you more alive. It just makes you more docile or some shit. It's like it's kind of pointless. It's I don't know, it's really dumb. Kill your own ego, blah blah blah. It's like this whole idea that self-rejection is some sort of a virtue. It's not. It's absolutely not a virtue. It's weakness disguised as one. I guess I can elaborate on what I meant by selling your soul to the devil, because I think this is kind of close to it as well. It's like you have different paths of achieving certain results. You could achieve something by um, overriding yourself, rejection of self, um, chasing advice or whatever, and maybe you'll get there. The problem is, will you feel as alive? Will you feel as you're there by the time you get there? And or what does the path cost you? You need to understand that, or at least this is my view. I maybe will need to think about this more. I think that as children, we actually grow up with a kind of strong sense of self. We are born with it, and this resource only gets depleted. So there's a bias of it, and it's something that you should, how should I say, most of us never learn how to properly use or develop. And because of that, but we also start with it, which means that there's a lot of strategies that are built completely on burning and destroying it. And they will yield results, but not over a long period of time. Uh, if that makes sense. Like we get like a free trial of being ourselves for the first few years of our lives, and then most of the time, that trial is over. Um, it's different for everyone where that happens, but for example, for boomer generations, I don't know, usually it's like their lives are basically over by like 50 or something. Their sense of self is just eroded. Um, but it can be much older. Like for example, for me, it was I reached this point at 20. It really it varies a lot. Um, and okay, so you start with this resource, and you can get to that path with this resource still fully intact, or with this resource fully depleted by the time you get there. And this makes a huge difference. It's like you can just keep going. Like this resource will just, I don't know, you'll not lose your excitement. You won't be this dead inside, "Meh, meh, meh, don't want to live anymore. Even doesn't matter your successes, they still don't justify loss of sense of self. Um, you're not gonna need to resort to this a hard Buddhism cope way of living where like you don't feel joy in anything, so you need to just completely shut off your thoughts because it's like, how should I say? It works, but it works like a lobotomy. It works by shutting off something that could have become your source of life. And yes, you can live a very long life that way, and to someone that might be appealing. To me personally, it isn't. Why? Because yes, I can live life this way, and I am someone that probably is more prone to this direction, at least. But what does that mean? That means to live my life not as myself for the rest of my life, which is equivalent to death. I might as well just kill myself today if I'm gonna do that. Like, what's the point of just copy pasting fucking ideology into your personality? Just completely destroying your personality? For what? Why? Just why? I don't know. Let's say there's something that you really like doing. I don't know. It's just something arbitrary. I don't know. You're like a poker enjoyer or some shit, right? And you go into and you're like, I have had enough of this life. I'm gonna go into the mountains and train with Shaolin monks and spend my life in a monastery. And yeah, maybe compared to poker, you'll live even double the amount of life. Well, I will clarify shit like drug consumption to me is also a form of escaping self. So to me, it's also cringe. Um, like if your self-expression is getting drunk with your mates, I don't know. To me, that's just a extremely if the time when you feel like you're the most of yourself is when you're drunk, that just shows the extent to which you are oppressed. The only time when you feel uh, remotely relaxed or happy, or uh, you don't feel the need to maintain this massive mask or whatever, uh, or you don't no need to fulfill certain expectations or whatever, is when you're literally cognitively impaired. That is just crazy to me. That means you are so oppressed that you're not even free in your own mind. You're literally just, I don't know. At that point, you might as well become a monk. Like, what's the point? But becoming a monk and drinking alcohol is exactly the same thing. There is no real difference between the two. Uh, they function in similar mechanisms. They're both about sacrificing control to feel and sacrificing your how should I say? Like when you drink, you sacrifice your cognitive ability, and when you uh meditate, you sacrifice your ego. And by relinquishing those things, you get to not feel oppressed. Let's just say that. It's like a way of saying, oh, there is something that is oppressing me, that is hurting my life. Instead of me just solving this and living a full life, I'm just going to end my life. At least that's how I interpret it. Whatever. I don't really feel like explaining it further. Um, seeing your own impact. Yes. Buddhism, rejection of self. Sense of self. Taking responsibility for your own decisions. Um, very, very, very powerful because it's a way of saying, I am the one in control. It is my merit or my failure that gets me here. Therefore, I am capable and significant. Of when you don't take responsibility for things, it's like, what does that mean? It's like, I am not in control. I am incapable of affecting this. I am not significant enough to uh, have impact. It's like the most self-depreciating thing you could imply to not take responsibility for things. Um, what else? Uh, let's think a little outside the box. Can we apply this idea to like some like trivial shit? Um, for example, loving someone, is that something that can increase or decrease your sense of self? Both. Uh, it depends how you do it. Um, if again you're worshipping someone, put them on a pedestal. Oh my God, she's out of my league. Meh, 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 I'm gonna put her on a pedestal. Meh, meh, meh. Or you are extremely like putting their needs above yours. Yeah, that's gonna depreciate yourself. It's a way of saying this person has more significance to my life than me. It's like, would I take a bullet for them? This type of shit. Um, that destroys your sense of self. I feel like any form of prolonged forced cohabitance with anyone will always destroy your sense of self. Um, I don't know. I'm willing to consider if there are alternatives, but I just don't see I just don't see a situation where that doesn't happen. Like it will guaranteed happen. They will somehow find a way to affect you. And if you consistently, I don't know, let's say you have your vows or something like, I have to be around you all the time. You're guaranteed to catch this, like, um, you're guaranteed to start inheriting some of their personality traits. You're gonna slowly start bending your will. I'm personally more into the idea of like a lot of distance, a lot of space between people. It's like I guess you could say I don't like to be um I don't know how to put it. I'm not a closed person, but I don't like to be intimately dependent on someone. Um and what I mean by that is I'm not going to subscribe to someone and be like, oh, now for the rest of my life, I'm gonna be attached to this entity that is now has some stake in myself. Why the fuck would anyone have a stake in your sense of self or in yourself? It's like you're selling your shares to another person. Don't you do that. That is just not logical. Yes, if that person is very close to you and you have mutually beneficial exchanges, they're giving you something you want, you're giving them something they want, and together you have this flourishing relationship where you both just profit tremendously. I'm not talking financially, well, financially also, but in terms of energy, you both benefit. Yes, you would want to keep partaking in that, but that's not done by forcing you into a permanent contract. Like that contract might change or uh, like what's the point of signing a non-compete agreement? You should just stick to whoever is, how should I say? Uh, I kind of touched on this in the previous video, but if your emotions or whatever are real, then both parties, I'm saying for both sides, then both parties will feel the desire to grow, and that will always yield more results and more favorable trade. And if the trade is starting to get less favorable and it's going to starting to look a little bit wonky, and it's like, hmm, maybe this isn't such a profitable trade. That means that there isn't love to begin with. And in that case, why are you sitting there and protecting yourself by vows or shared ownership of something? It's just retarded, right? You're sacrificing uh, your ability to move into beneficial trades to stay with someone who basically guaranteed it doesn't love you or you don't love them, right? And because if you did, you wouldn't have this problem to begin with. So it's like there's just zero logic to there. I have no idea why society even came here. Uh, I but it's Christianity. I think Christianity or any form of worship is like a plague on humanity. I think that shit probably set us back a couple hundred years. Um, if not thousands. Who knows? Maybe there were other forms of religion before that, right? If you think about it, since people are so prone to it because it's a cheap answer. It's a cheap drug. Like I see no difference between alcoholics or religious people. To me, those are the same. They've Yes, physically there's a lot of difference, but metaphysically they've made the same choice. Sacrifice your uh sense of self or ego or your cognitive ability, like relinquish control and for peace or calmness. Like what the fuck is that, right? Okay, so kind of to finish the point, in your connections with people, it should always be based on mutual benefit and not on some vows or whatever. If you're at a point where you need a vow to stay together, you're protecting something that shouldn't be protected in the first place. In other words, it's already a failing ship. You don't need to um, you don't need to sync with it. It's just not logical at all. It just doesn't make any sense. Okay, what else increases or affects your sense of self? Mm, group identities. So attributing yourself to any form of collective or group identity, that the bigger it is, the less or the bigger impact it can have. For example, if you there are some people that just group people, and that's a really strong projection of self. It's very telling. Also correlates with low intelligence as well. For example, if you ever hear something like, "Oh, you are one of those types," someone who's like trying to sit there and like put you into a little bucket, it's it shows a lot about their view of the world. Those types of people uh are projecting their lack of identity, and they think that other people also don't have an identity or self, that they need to stick to groups to feel that their identity is expressed enough. Strong individuals do not need this. If you are interested in reading about this, uh, read about Einstein and his views on uh, what was happening in Nazification of Germany. That's a really good example. Or uh, another person I read about was Lomonosov, who was like a Russian guy who just like or whatever, I'm not gonna explain, or Newton or whatever. Like all of those people had one thing in common. They had a really strong sense of self, and they had a very strong ability to resist majority. Like if they were in a crowd of people, their identity wouldn't get diluted in them. They will retain their sovereignty. They won't just become the mob. Mob is indicative of low quality human. That is someone who has a very low sense of self. If you really think about it, religious groups are also mobs. Stoicists, any of like groups of people, any form of group is always indicative of how should I say, a small fire that is trying to protect itself by joining a bigger fire or a bigger collection of small fires. It's a survival mechanism for people with low sense of self. That is uh, and ironically, subscribing to such ideas destroys your sense of self further, so you become dependent on it. Um, and yeah, obviously, having a strongly defined individual identity, non-group identity, definitely helps your sense of self. like individualism. Uh, a lot of people seem to really misattribute this idea. They seem to, for some reason, connect it to like selfishness or materialism or something like that. No. Um, you can be a completely individual person and still follow whatever cause that you think is moral or whatever you think is right. You just don't need to do that as a brainless entity of a group. You don't need to reduce yourself to that level of uh, existence. You can still retain your sovereignty and do those things that you think are so just. For some reason, people demonize people that have a strong sense of self. Interesting how that works. It's anyone who deviates from the normal path, anyone who is able to break free from society, I think to someone who isn't able to do that is like a threat. Um, Maybe I will talk about that another day. But the responses I've seen from such people is they try to recruit them into their groups, is what I've noticed. Is like, uh, even if they're not consciously doing it, they're just like, you're doing this hobby? That's a stupid. Like I saw this in like a public uh server, and there's some guy who's like something along the lines of, "Oh, I want to do this, blah blah blah," and then everyone is just coming there and saying, "Oh, you have your dream? Oh, you have your interests? You know what you want from life? Yeah, don't do that. That's stupid." What the fuck? What's the point of even living your life if you're not able to follow the things that you are um uh drawn to? What's the point of living such a life? It's such a cheese min-maxing way of seeing life that will first of all, it won't yield any better results because your fire gets smaller, and without that, good luck fucking getting anything done. You're gonna be mediocre forever. And number two, it's like you're choosing to play life the most unfun way possible. You're just completely sucking the fun out of life. And then you're sitting there and wondering why fucking uh you're depressed or whatever or sad or blah 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 blah. You sucked the life out of your own life by making those decisions. And you fail to admit it to yourself. You have compromised on what you have wanted because you are scared and you got scared of failing. But the reality of it is such, even taking on risk increases your sense of self. Making decisions by your own volition, doing anything that um, allows you to exist, anything that controls your life, even something uh, I don't know, even something like I'm in this field and I want to go into a completely different field, and you go into that, you're going to feel such liberation just from making the choice. Like, damn, I have uh disconnected from this source that I thought I couldn't live without of, and I actually succeeded. Look at me. And that will always grow your sense of self, making those tough decisions. Um, in a way, uh, you can even do that in, how should I say? The thing I'm thinking about is like very tough physical training. You would think that that's something that erodes your sense of self. You're using willpower to overcome extreme obstacles. Uh, yes and no. It depends. If we go like most training, yeah, that's gonna erode your sense of self. If you go extremely extreme training, where you literally have to um, it's like it's so far. in one direction that no one is asking you to do that. There's no one to do it by your side, and you're still choosing to do that. That is an expression of self. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, that's probably the only thing that's fucking keeping Goggins alive. Uh, I think I've explained before, what I think the problems are with his thinking and how that just destroys people. But now that I think about it, he probably that whole thing is just overriding all the negative effects because at the end of the day, all of this extreme thing that he does is like, yeah, but no one else will be able to do that other than me. Who's gonna carry the boats? Uh, like in a way, that what he has managed to do is find himself in that struggle or whatever. Uh, I don't know. It's just something that randomly clicked actually. Um, it's just a possible explanation for it. So any form of individualism, any form of being able to stray from the norm, being able to take the shorter path or the longer path or whatever path, the untread path, discovering something new, uh, deviating will always increase your sense of self. What else increases your sense of self? Uh, let's say you are within these groups or whatever in these mobs, taking a leadership position within that because the higher you are up the pyramid, the more power you have, right? And climbing this social ladder, yes, it will actually improve your sense of self relatively, uh, but you'll never be as free as someone who's just independent. uh, and this is a really big, I think, logical mistake that people fall under. They see this, they observe this, the higher I go, the uh, better it is. And to some extent, that is true, but it is only true locally if you were to isolate it from what is possible. If you're completely to forget about, the other way of doing things and just completely ignore it, yeah, your strategy to be is to climb as high of a dominant position because there you'll have more leverage to express yourself and be yourself. But you're still like sucking the titty off whoever's above you, and you're still subservient to them. Uh, but there's just less people above you, so it doesn't feel as crushing to be in the system. But so yes, locally that is correct and that is works. But people are very short-sighted. They fail to realize that there's completely other ways of engagement that just blow this shit that they're doing out of the water. Like there's you could spend fucking two millennial, not two millennial, but 2 decades, and you will not get the same sense of self, like 2 decades climbing the ladder, and you will not get to the level of liberation that you would get from even 5 years of just detaching or not even entering there in the first place. It's really dumb. And fundamentally, if you really think about what the goal of our life is and what we strive towards biologically, is we strive to exist, we strive to be alive, and that to try to do that um, by eroding yourself is to completely miss the point of life. I would go as far as that. It's like you have some video game, and the whole idea of the video game is that you're supposed to, I don't know. Let's say you have Counter-Strike, for example. Like, what's the idea behind that game? Take mechanics duels and show who is the strongest by, taking fights. Yeah, or fundamentally that was the idea behind it, right? And then over years, that game has evolved into fucking strat, roles and other clusterfuck to a point where people are so fucking subscribed to this idea of winning that they're so scared of taking duels because how dare I take duels? I must always double peek or play with utility or within realms of my system or strategy that they completely lose their individuality as players. And this is the kind of amateur trap. All amateur level players get stuck at this level because by playing like this, they stop improving individually because they stop taking those jewels and or they start taking them in a different way that isn't as expressive of self. It's more expressive of the system that they're in. In other words, they're just subscribing to something, right? Um, and to play Counter-Strike that way is just really shit, and it's not fun. It's just not fun. It's a really shit game if you play it that way. Uh, you're gonna feel extremely oppressed the longer you stay in that system. Okay. Is there anything else that can affect your sense of self? Uh, taking responsibility, individualism, seeing your own impact. I feel like I've touched a little bit on this, like feeling like you're. I don't know actually. No. Also just awareness, like just being aware of small details. Like, oh damn, I just did this. I couldn't do this before. Like even that, those little small details. I guess it's a little bit with this. It's literally just being aware that you fucking exist and just kind of appreciating that a little bit. Or I'm not saying to go full down this mindfulness, meditation, the voices in my head, but just a little bit elements of that, of just like, I exist. I have just existed. Very, very amazing. Very poggers. I feel like that's it. And and in general, sense of self, um, is just very important to your overall well-being. I think that when you take away this from people, they lose their grip on life. Uh, and in then you could make the argument, well, I since I have become religious, my life has only been better. Mm, has it really become better by you becoming stronger and more alive, or has it become more tolerable by you refusing to play it fully? Again, it's like the Counter-Strike example. You could take a duels, and that will be that when you lose, that is very painful, and when you win, that is very rewarding. Or you could completely forego that and subscribe to a system, and now you're never ever taking jewels on your own volition. You're only doing that within your system when your uh, IGL or when your plan tells you to do so. And in that way, you reduce yourself to a cog, but you also free yourself from responsibility and from the burden of your own choice. And by doing that, you feel a relief. Yes, you feel better. A lot of you guys that subscribe to this shit and argue that it is better and it makes your life better, you're in reality what is happening is you are taking the easier path in advocating for it as if it's a replacement for life. It's not a replacement for life. It is a substitute. It is a cheap shortcut and nothing else. I will never be able to respect this. Um, okay, I guess I can. I think I maybe went a little bit off on this. I'll go back to. Oh, you're one of those types. Um, People that try to group you or almost like dehumanize you into certain buckets. Um, it's a form of taking away, like, or devaluing, or yeah, taking away subjectiveness of each person's self. It's like you have a certain belief, and they're like, yeah, of course, that's what fascist would say. That's what I don't know, Dora the Explorer watcher would say. It's like grouping people this way is very or being grouped in this way is very it's basically an attack on self if you really think about it. What they're saying is you don't really exist. You're just eminence of this collective thought. And 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 oh my God, this is why I hate arguing with religious people as well. They're always deflect. Okay, you will be arguing with or not arguing, discussing some beliefs with them, and then they will always eventually reach to a point where they can no longer defend whatever idea you were challenging, and they will just say, "Well, ask someone smarter than me." That is the most like self-crushing thing you could say. It's like, I don't even know why I believe something that I believe, and I have so little, uh, and that doesn't bother me. I don't know. It's like, ah, it's like trying to play Counter-Strike and avoiding duels at all cost. Why are you even playing? How can you even enjoy playing the game that way? The game, all the fun is in taking those duels. Why the fuck are you even playing? Might as well go play fucking Idle Simulator. It might be the same level of engagement or involvement. Okay, so you're one of those types. Those people are sometimes on purpose, they're just trying to profile you and just dismantle your arguments by just strawmanning all over the place. Like, someone like you always has this belief, and it's like, ah, am I arguing from my own personal basis, or am I arguing from a random projection that you've put on me and you're just going to use like this is kind of disgusting. These people are very how should I say? I would say they're very not well-meaning a lot of the time, or is what I found. They're like playing imposter. They're playing like genuine and they're not genuine at all. They're just completely combat mode. Okay, I think that is it. I mean, there's probably more small things, but the general point has been made. Sense of self is extremely important. It affects your desire towards life. It um, affects your potential because with a strong sense of self, your body has a bigger handle on releasing its resources. If you know why you're doing that and how that affects you personally, it's much easier to become engaged with things and become attached to things, and that is what causes the release of energy. If you're living a monotonous life that you don't see yourself in, your body is slowly going to just go conservation of energy and slowly drain resources. It's just finding the easiest and shortest path because it doesn't see any engagement. As a result, what are you going to experience? You're going to see everything that everyone is experiencing right now. Uh, you're gonna feel extreme fatigue. You're gonna feel depressed. You're gonna feel lost in life. You're gonna feel not attached to anything. You're gonna feel numb. You're gonna feel bored. You're gonna feel uh purposeless and empty and uh even if you are in contact with people, you'll feel unfulfilled. And that is a direct result of neglecting self. And this problem is only getting worse and worse. And yeah, that that is why. And these people, as it gets worse, it's the worst part of it. It's a self-reinforcing thing. As it gets worse, the weaker they feel, the more they feel the need to subscribe to these things that are actually poisoning them. And like your savior is actually the first cause of your problem. It takes very high intelligence or some very extreme circumstances to break out of this. Most people, how should I say, that's a statistical outlier to be able to break out of this. The trend is extremely towards self suppression. And I think our society is organized in this way. Everything in our society is organized in this way. Um, and it will continue to be so until people start waking up and understanding these primitive things, which there isn't really many indicators of, so maybe not. Who cares? Don't care. I literally don't care. Whatever, we'll see. Um, I want to elaborate on that a little bit because I've touched on this idea a bit, but I want to elaborate. So, people are feeling this fatigue, they're feeling this withdrawal or whatever, depersonalization, apathy, blah blah blah. It is a byproduct of losing self or diminishing sense of self. What is the consensus on what you should do? Oh, just exercise more, just sleep more, just eat better. They are shitting into your brain. That is not the first root of the problem. If you had a why, which only comes from if you exist, you can't want something if you don't exist. Those are directly proportional. Um, then all of the other things will fall into place. You can't just fucking uh, go for morning walks and good exercise and good diet and some quality time speaking with people and good sleep yourself into having a fucking sense of self and a personality, which is why that shit doesn't work. Who has that ever worked for? I was super depressed, I had no meaning of life, and then I watched this YouTube short or whatever that told me to just start going outside. Yeah, maybe you will see some short-term changes, but on a long-term scale, uh, how should I say, that might make you feel better, because you're making a choice to make your life better. It's still an extension of sense of self, but that will only get you out of trivial problems. And if your trend is to always favor erasure of self, for whatever reason, it will only make it worse long term. So this shit doesn't work, and they keep fucking feeding us with this bullshit as if it does. And I have, um, I'm yet to see. I don't know. It's a predominantly like nobody understands this. Nobody understands this. And yeah, whatever. Doesn't matter. I don't need to elaborate further. Point made. Goodbye.